It's funny because I can see myself with the slight delay on the back of your screen.
I'm sure you can. Okay. This is funny. There we go. Okay, hold on. Hello there, and welcome to the Dr. Elisa Show here on KUHS Denver, the stream. If you're listening in and you'd also like to watch, you can watch us live on Facebook on KUHSdenver.com or on Facebook at the Dr. Elisa Show or on Twitter. If you are new, I'm Dr. Elisa. Welcome to my show, and you can find me anywhere you look. Also, I am on Facebook, I am on Twitter, I am on Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn. And you can also find me simply by going to my website, elisarobin.com. So thank you so much for tuning in today. As you know, the show is about inspiring a renaissance of spirit within you, within all of us, and what I've been doing is having soulful conversations with people, and today is no different. I have an amazing guest. Before I get to my guest, I'm so excited about this show, I want to remind you two things. To begin with, this show is spiritually multilingual. So if we say God and you want to think universal energy, go for it. If we say prayer and you feel better with meditation, okay, don't let the words stop you from embracing the meaning and the intention of what we're talking about. That's number one. Number two, as you know, all year I've been saying I want each of us to be a philanthropist. And a philanthropist can be someone who donates $1 a day, maybe $5 a month, whatever works for you. And so we're getting to the end of the year. If you've not done your donations, I have lots of suggestions. You know that this year MS has been my go-to charity, but there are so many good causes out there, and especially this time of year. So take that step and be a philanthropist and understand it's not the amount you donate, it's the intention with which you give. Okay, those are my two. And then I've got this amazing announcement before we get to my guest. I know I have been talking for months about my second novel, Dark Fire. And Dark Fire is available now for pre-order on Amazon Kindle. So, and if you don't have a Kindle, that's okay, don't worry. You can download the Kindle app for free on your phone or your computer and read the book. And guess what? It's 99 cents. I have it priced so that everybody can read it and give me feedback. It will go live December 31st, so if you buy it now, you can have it ready for a New Year's adventure. You know, you're going to want to do something quiet on the 1st of January. So you can buy that. Okay, so enough talk about me and the show. Here's what I want to do. I want to introduce my guest. You've met him before, actually, if you've been listening to the show. And last time I had him on, he was working on a project called Clean Speech Colorado, which was about how we speak to others. And I have him back on because he's refined that and is now doing, it's still Clean Speech Colorado, but it's about creating peace in our lives and in our worlds with little tiny steps, and it's absolutely fascinating. So, Rabbi Leban, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me again, Dr. Lisa.
Could you start us? The clean speech was Lashon Hara, not gossiping, and now we've moved into peace. And where I'd like to start this conversation, if it's okay with you, is the word peace means something slightly different in different cultures and different languages. In Hebrew, it is a greeting. It also means bring to wholeness. In Arabic, sa'alam, which is also a greeting, I think means something more like surrendering to the world, to Allah. There are other places where it means calmness inside. There are places where it means the peace within me sees the peace within you. Could you just start us with a bit of a conversation? what does peace mean in the framework that you're using it?
Sure. The Clean Speech Colorado campaign that we've developed, it's now been 3 years. This is our third campaign, and I was privileged to meet you and join you on your show last year to talk a little bit about it. Really is, as you said, it is an effort, a community effort for 30 days to, on a daily basis for just a few minutes a day, to develop a greater mindfulness about the way we communicate. We started, like you said, with dealing with gossip and slander and trying to rid our speech and communication from those negative, harmful, hurtful things. The second year, we tackled another Hebrew concept called onas devarim, which has to do with the way that you communicate with someone without causing embarrassment or offense or shame or any kind of discomfort. And this year, in our third campaign, we focused on shalom. So that's how we would say peace. These are at their core. These are timeless Jewish wisdom, and the word shalom, as you mentioned, comes from the word shalem, which means whole or complete. We look at from a classical Jewish perspective, it is all our goal to become complete and to be part of to arrive at and to achieve our ultimate selves, which is thought of as a kind of a wholeness and completeness. Achieve all that we can, all that we can be. But more importantly, I think I would say, this is a big theme for the campaign and for me, and I hope we get to talk about it today. The sense of wholeness and peace that we're really talking about in the campaign is not just a personal peace, like you would say, inner peace or peace of mind, but much more so it's to be a contributing part of a universal peace, of an ultimate peace, of which we all just play our part. And really our own journey towards personal wholeness, personal shalemut, personal wholeness, is part of and is really a component of the greater universal journey towards the ultimate shalom, the ultimate wholeness. So a big part of our campaign this year is to define that, to get to have greater grasp of what that means, and to learn to speak to others and communicate and connect in a way that is enhancing rather than detracting from the degree of shalom that the world is experiencing, that the people in the room I'm experiencing with, the people I'm communicating with are experiencing. It's a very connective effort. How am I connecting to people? In what way am I contributing positively to their well-being? And in that way, the greater that we connect to each other, the greater that we contribute positively with awareness and mindfulness, that we know that we are fulfilling, I'm going to go out on a limb here, fulfilling what we would say our purpose for which we were created, to contribute positively to the greater shalom and the greater wholeness of the universe, then that is that's where our peace of mind comes from. That's where we feel a part of the great shalom. We're contributing positively to the shalom of the universe. So I hope I didn't say too much just to get the ball rolling and to talk with you about these topics.
That was lovely, and there are about 3 rabbit holes you open that I want to go down.
Yeah.
Can we just stay with that theme for a while? Is that all right with you?
Of course.
So you mentioned connecting, and you mentioned mindfulness, and sort of this whole greater peace. So let's stay in sort of the Jewish piece for a bit, and then we'll bring it out perhaps broader. It reminds me of the notion of tikkun, that perhaps my soul came here to bring some sense of wholeness, and I like the word wholeness better than healing, to the world. Is that connected? Is that part of what you're talking about?
Absolutely. A very, very classic perspective on existence, Jewishly, is that the world was created in an unwhole way. Some would say a broken way. There are mystical sources that talk about the act of creation is in fact almost a shattering to create a universe that would need us to come along and to put the pieces back together. And that's certainly, I think, many would hopefully agree with me, that certainly describes the world that we find ourselves in, which is not whole, not yet there, not at the finish line. And our opportunity, our role to play is to be a part of that solution, to put the pieces back together, to create that wholeness and that peace, which is something much greater than ourselves, a harmony, a universal harmony. And again, I very much enjoyed what you said in your introduction. If we think about bringing a godliness into the world, but a person who could perhaps use other terms to think about a universal harmony that might resonate with some. Jewishly, we want to bring a greater degree of divine presence into the world, that blessing, that goodness, all the positive things that would bring with it. And that would be a way of talking about that wholeness. And tikkun is the verb, if you will. To be mitakein is the Hebrew word, which means to correct, to fix, to bring about wholeness, which is what we are in part very focused on in our Clean Speech Colorado campaigns, specifically through focusing on communication one with another. Speech, by and large, the way that we communicate, the way that we talk, is the primary fodder of human interaction, and there's no other route to shalom, to peace, than through upgrading and ultimately perfecting and finessing and perfecting all of our relationships, our human interactions. So that brings us to speech more than any other tool that we have in our tool belt to succeed in our relationships. And that's why we directed in our campaign efforts that attention to speaking peacefully, to enhancing the peace in the world through speech.
So that one of the ways I reach, if I'm just trying to make sure that we're all understanding, one of the ways I reach a sense of what some people may call my best self, or what my life purpose or mission is to build connections with others that foster a level of, and again, the tikkun word is so rich, right? Of putting the world back together, one relationship at a time. Is that what you're saying?
Even one word at a time, because that's actually the way we phrased it. But yes, it's to take seriously all of our close, personal, intimate relationships with people with whom we live or work, or neighbors or colleagues, or even just the barista. But the fact that we would recognize that the success of those relationships which are the product of interactions, of speech, of conversations, of dialogue, of communication, connection. The fact that we would recognize that is our primary opportunity to perfect the universe it should really inspire us to speak carefully and to be mindful and to work on that effort. That is so important. That's going to bring us not only, Dr. Elisa, is that going to work on some sort of a external universal peace, but it's going to bring us to a place of much greater happiness and satisfaction and meaning and fulfillment. We're going to feel good about ourselves as we are relating better, and as we're speaking better, and as we're improving our ability to connect meaningfully with the meaningful people in our lives, in our world. That will directly and immediately translate to a sense of our own personal sense of well-being, achievement, satisfaction, self-worth, all of those super important things that we need to live and to thrive.
Okay, so I'm loving this, so thank you so much for this. If you're just tuning in, this is the Dr. Elisa Show on KUHS. Let me try that again. KUHS Denver, the stream. And I would love your comments on this. And you can comment by going to the Facebook page, that is KUHS Denver, or by going to the Dr. Elisa Show Facebook page and putting your thoughts in the comments. And if you have any questions, I'd love to see those also. So Rabbi, do you like Rabbi or Reb, or what do you like? Rabbi's
That's fine.
good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rabbi's good.
So here is, I think, what attracts me so much to this, and I read very, very broadly, and there are so many books out there on being your best self and finding your inner peace, and this is such a practical application, and yet it sounds easy, which it's not as easy as we think. It's very practical, and I think it's incredibly subtle and often overlooked. So how did you, I know we talked about this last time, how did you get to the point where words became so important to you?
Really, these are very timeless, very classic Jewish perspectives. Nothing that I've shared today or in any of the material is of my own creation. It's really just our as a team here, our attempt to bring to the forefront of community attention the skills and these priorities that are sometimes so lacking in our world. These are we started this effort of Clean Speech Colorado 5 years ago when there was became such a clear and visceral sense that we seem to have lost our ability to talk peacefully with one another. The aisle just keeps widening, and if we find ourselves shouting vociferously at each other in a completely useless and counterproductive fashion, and I would hear story after story of family relationships being broken off and friends unfriending each other. It's just that is a painful and a road that we don't want to go down. And no one wants to be in that place, and we're all aware that it's an issue and it's a problem. The question is, where's the solution come from? And so I'll tell you something, Dr. Lisa, from the very early words of the Torah, which is of course the seminal work of Judaism and of our understanding of our lives. The Torah talks about the creation of man, and when it says that God breathed into the man, the body of which he created from the dust of the earth, he breathed into him the breath of life. So right there on the spot, our classic commentaries of thousands of years ago said that man became a speaking spirit. The essence of the divine soul breathed into us is that we should be able to thereby communicate. We should speak by it. Our souls are communicative. That's the essence of a soul, is to speak, is to connect. And so the fact that for thousands of years these have been our guideline, our guiding principles. How will we speak? What things will we avoid saying? What things will we strive to say more of? In what way will we use our divine gift of a soul which speaks? In what way will we use that and wield that incredible power, that divine power? That's it's a classic. It's a basic for us, and yet the actual skill set seems to be in short supply. And so over the course of the last 3 campaigns, we've now selected 90 short, thoughtful lessons. Each campaign is a 30-day campaign, and it's a 2-minute lesson, and it's something meaningful, and it's a chunk of insight that a person can digest in a very short period of time, and it's immediately relevant. This is not abstract, and it's not ethereal. It's extremely practical. How can you go about your day and communicate in a more successful way? And lots and lots and lots of little tips with lots of background and rationale and sometimes even some modern data, that helps to backfill, our understanding of that skill set. But it's always relevant, and it's a skill. We're developing skills, and we're growing. And if we're all doing this, the more of us that are even just adopt a little bit this perspective. I have the goal and desire, no matter how successful I am or I'm not, but if it's my goal and desire to communicate beautifully, to speak mindfully, to to be a champion of good relationships, maybe even over a champion of my own values with which you may differ. I'm gonna prioritize our relationship above the values about which we differ. That means we could argue, we could debate, we could differ, but our relationship supersedes that, and we can care about each other even though we differ vehemently. That's okay. We can still nonetheless recognize our ultimate human connection, our community connection, and prioritize that above our need to champion this or that ideal or polemic. So we can talk. We're not. Our campaigns are not trying to smother conversation, but rather to embellish and enhance our ability to talk about what's meaningful to us and to be heard and to hear others in a productive way, in a respectful way. These are I don't want to go too quickly. We're just sort of describing what someone would find in a daily lesson of the campaign if they would like to participate. And I just wanted to offer that also, if any of the listeners would like to. We're in the middle of the campaign, but there's no cost, and you just go to cleanspeech.com and you'll see there's an Illinois campaign going on right now and a Colorado campaign going on right now, and you can participate in either one of those.
It's so easy to participate, so if you're listening and just wondering about this, you can do a Google search on Clean Speech or Clean Speech Colorado. You just sign up. It takes less than 5 minutes a day, I would say, to listen to the videos. If you don't want to listen, you can do a quick scan and read the text. And then there's a lesson. There's I try this today. So a couple things. We are so disparate right now as a society in America. It seems that we're using words to shatter, almost to reshatter the world, as opposed to gather those pieces together and put them together. I'm wondering if you have thoughts on what's the impetus behind that? How is it that we have gone from being able to say to each other, let's agree to disagree, and go back to the fact that we love each other? And I'm wondering if you feel that that's fear, if you have a sense of what is stirring that kind of disparate conversation.
Are you asking what do I think is causing the problem, or what might motivate us to seek out a solution?
Let's go that way. What might motivates us to seek out a solution? I like that one better. Okay.
Well, since this is a show for spiritual seekers and interested people from all backgrounds and spiritual walks of life, I think there's a couple of possible motivations that might speak to your broad audience. We certainly understand that this is obligatory to us from a Jewish perspective. These are commandments. The Ten Commandments. Are not the 10 suggestions. We feel obliged. This is our role in life. This is what we are here to do. And that can be a very motivating thing. We all want to be fulfilled and to accomplish the task for which we were created. So that's one perspective. But even from another perspective, from a place of enlightened self-interest, and I'm sure a lot of us are motivated by a desire for something greater, for something more fulfilling, to an opportunity to contribute, and thereby to feel a greater sense of purpose, or just to have greater peace of mind, like we said before, and to achieve a bit of tranquility. All of those are reasons. From an enlightened self-interest perspective, this is nonetheless something that you can't really avoid. It's a person. We're not going to be able to get any of that, feel good about ourselves if we are just struggling in maintaining successful and loving, peaceful relationships with the people around us. It's just not going to happen. And those two things are at odds. So we would all be motivated to further develop and improve our skills, mindful speech, communicative skills. We would be driven to do that simply because we ourselves will benefit. We will enjoy a more peaceful life, in no uncertain terms, when we are better attuned to communicating with the people around us and being sensitive to them, to listen to them, to hear them, respect them, and we will be likewise respected by them in a greater degree, and we will feel much better. It should be a no-brainer. Why it isn't, I don't know, but I think we would if the campaign can just get everybody's attention, it doesn't take a lot of arm twisting.
I feel like it is a feedback loop. When I practice and am very, very conscious of what I say, even if I'm alone in my car and I'm responding to somebody in traffic, nobody's listening to me, but these words are still coming out of my mouth. I have noticed that I can calm myself down with my words or upset myself with my words. I can feel more fearful with my words. I can feel more hopeful with my words. And since the beginning of COVID, I've decided to choose hope. That's sort of much more comfortable. And my words, even when I'm alone, affect that feeling. So as you said, on purely a sense of sort of self-interest, choosing my words well can be almost narcissistic if you want to think of it that way. It helps me be better, feel better, and disconnect from the anger in the world around me. Just one more question in that sort of loop we've been, and then we're going to move on. I don't know, is there a sense in Torah, in Tanakh, in Talmud, that the energy that I send out simply because of how I am inside, so the words I use internally, simply to myself, and that energy that then here's who I am, does that help change the world, even if I'm not speaking to another?
Absolutely. It's very clearly said in some of the more mystical sources, and I'm not going to claim to be a Kabbalist or to be someone who is any kind of authority on deeper Jewish mysticism, of which there is tremendous depth. But from my at least rudimentary knowledge of it, that's where you find a great discussion of the impact of the universe of even something done in private. Meaning to say that my ability to affect the universe is even insofar as I make the right decision about how to conduct myself in my very small circle, my small world, at home, alone by myself. Frankly, I can impact the universe with my decisions, with my speech, with my thoughts. I should say first thoughts, and then speech, and then actions. So those three realms are all mystically ways which we impact the universe without us being able to see the way that it works. I think a good metaphor, Dr. Elisa, might be like, cell phone. I mean, I'm sitting here in my office, you're in your office, and yet we're able to communicate with people around the globe. I have no idea how that works, but there's underlying technology here, and the universe has its own divine underlying technology. I actually have a colleague who wrote a book called Spiritual Technology, and it's meant to discuss what you brought up, which is our ability to genuinely affect the universe positively, or God forbid the opposite, by our own independent individual actions, that both, as we said, thoughts, speech, and deeds. If a person is really interested for fuller treatment, one can look at Reb Chaim of Volozhin's classic work on the topic, the Nefesh HaChaim, the living soul. So there are, so that's just as I mentioned as a source, but he speaks in depth in the very beginning of the book about how the universe is impacted by us, and that can give each of us a sense of responsibility and a sense of power and a sense of potential, that we are significant. Each and every one of us is a significant being, a significant contributor to the peaceful universe. Sometimes we think about that on a very surface level. You know that if you start someone's day with a smile and they go about and have a better day, that you see how you've impacted the world positively. A kind word goes and goes and goes, and the ripple effects go on and on. But we're even mystically, even in invisible ways, when you're by yourself, that same ripple effect exists in the universe underneath the surface, and it does. It should give us a sense of great significance, and we are significant.
So that we can choose to bring peace to the world, even when we're alone. That we can say that the more I center myself in hope or in peace or all those definitions of peace, that is rippling out somewhere, right? Which I think is a mystic tradition in Buddhism, in almost any sort of spiritual path we talk about, right? So this isn't just Jewish. It's just that we happen to be coming from Jewish texts for this.
Absolutely, and
Right.
and just to point out as well, the lessons in the campaigns that we put together are really ubiquitously relevant and totally accessible. A person doesn't have to be Jewish to participate. We have many non-Jews that participate and enjoy it. So these are ways in which all of humanity can benefit.
I was actually just going to ask you about that because I know you've written a book on Torah, and clean speech comes from, sort of birthed from, right, from Torah, from Talmud, and have you had responses from people from different belief systems, interactions on how that relates to their sense of spiritual growth?
It's interesting. I have lots and lots of feedback from people that are outside of the Jewish faith who have appreciated it and shared it, and they said how much it resonates. In fact, there's a pastor and his wife in Colorado Springs who participate regularly and love it, and we have a non-Jewish school in Illinois. As I mentioned before, there's a Clean Speech Illinois campaign going on as well right now, and one of the schools there, and we just some secular schools in Colorado have reached out to say, hey, we'd love to do a campaign like this in our school. And we're deciding now if we want to modify, it's not the right word, but just repackage the campaign, that it could be used by different faith traditions or different communities. Right now, I just because that's my background and that's my professional life and my communal life is to serve the Jewish community. So that's really been our core, and we've rallied all corners of the Jewish community in a most amazing way. We've never none of us, I think, have ever really experienced this kind of broad, collaborative effort for such a thing. But that's exactly its nature. By definition, it's very wholesome. Is that kind of effort, and so we focused on the Jewish community, but we have lots and lots and lots of participants outside, and I think we know that a focus on speech and on peace and on in these mindful speech lessons find their comfortable home in many faith traditions.
So let me just take a break for just a second here and let people know that you are listening to the Dr. Elisa Show on KUHS Denver, the stream, with my amazing guest, Rabbi Leban. And if you've missed the first half of the show, I want to remind you that you will be able to find it on my webpage. Once we're done, it'll get reposted. And you're going to want to listen to the first part of the show because the second part stands on the first part of the show, and it's been so interesting so far. So if you're interested again in finding out more, go to cleanspeech.com or do a search on Clean Speech Colorado, and it will come up. It's easy to find and very, very applicable, I think, in everybody's life. I'm perfectly happy with you going in whatever direction you want, but one of the things I've noticed in this work, in last year's work, is the power of story. And that these are not lessons of thou shalt not. This bad thing will happen. These are human stories. Can you just expand on that for me?
Really, you're very. It's very apt what you just said, Dr. Lisa. Both the applicability, both the circumstances in which we talk about mindful speech lessons are stories, the stories of our day, the interactions of our day. What's it like, when everybody in the home gets up and everybody's in a crummy mood and they're crabby and they snap at each other and then they walk out of the house in a foul mood and upset with each other. What happens later on in their day? I mean, that's a story. The opposite story, is this. What would it be like if they were able to pause and be more mindful and to think about their impact on each other and to even when it's tough, to be more tolerant, be more patient, be more respectful, be more loving, and to start each other's day off in a different way. So these are the conversation, between two people is always a story, and so we have lots and lots and lots of stories, even jokes, and really the idea is to, like you said, at the end of every lesson is to try this today. And it means take it out into your day. Let's hear your story. And how do you apply today's thought? It's really not thou shalt not do this and fry. It's meant to be. I'll tell you one story. This year, we were in the process of recording one of the lessons. So the way we met, you recall, last year was you came in to be featured as the teacher of one of the daily lessons on the video. So it was so nice. That's how we met. This year, someone came in and was going to be filmed teaching the lesson that we'd written. We have 30 different people from around the community come in. Each one films, reads a lesson and films it in the video. So, and before we got started, she told me the following story, which subsequently made its way into the campaign. And she said she remembered this was a mother, a middle-aged mother, not too old, but not a young person. And she remembered the following story she shared with me from her own childhood. She said, I remember one time my next door neighbor, a young girl, we were girls, and she came up to me and she had just gotten a haircut, and she said, how do you like my new haircut? And unthinkingly, she said, I responded to her and I said, I think I liked it better before. Oh. And of course, she said that the girl was flattened, and she said, you're so mean. Mm-hmm. And she recognized instantly how hurtful that her words had been. Unintentionally hurtful, but hurtful nonetheless. Mm-hmm. And to this very day, who knows how many decades later that is, she still feels, she can think about that and feel that feeling a discomfort in the pit of her stomach, how much pain she caused her neighbor by the thoughtless response that she gave her. And that became, that is a great story from which we draw a lesson. It's actually on November 21st. You're gonna hear that story if you participate in the campaign. It's a day 21 lesson, and the little story is told, and then we talk about our obligations to be honest or to be peaceful. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, although being meticulously honest is an absolutely significant ideal. It's an absolute ideal. But there are times when there's a higher ideal of peace, of shalom. There are times when you need to give your honest opinion when you're being asked for it. But sometimes you're not being asked for it may seem like it. You're not really being asked for your honest opinion. Somebody just got a haircut, and it's not much that can be done about it now. We can't uncut the hair. So they're not really asking for your honest opinion about how their hair should be. They're asking for a kind word. And that happens very frequently, Oh, doesn't my daughter play the cello so nicely? Absolutely. She absolutely plays. The answer is absolutely. She plays beautifully. You're not being asked for your honest opinion. Be careful. And this actually happened to me the other day. I had a guest at my Shabbat table on a Friday night dinner, and I showed him a piece of art over the mantle that my wife and I did. We're not artistic, but we're crafty, and we had made an impressionist artistic representation of the Western Wall in Jerusalem, this holy Jewish site, and it's hard to tell what it is. And I would sometimes ask guests what they think. So this fellow I know was actually an artist. And so I said, look, take a look. Can you figure out what it is? What do you think? And he looked back at me first and he said, are you asking for my artistic critical opinion or just for a nice word? And he was so on target, and I was so impressed at how self-aware that he was. I really wasn't asking for his, this thing has been on the wall for 10 years. I'm not going to change it. I'm not really looking for a critical artistic opinion because I'm not an artist and it doesn't matter. I was just asking him to enjoy the thing for a minute with me that I had put on the wall. And he very, very clearly understood that he needed to know what he was being asked before he responded. What am I being asked? I can't respond, in a way that is not what was sought here in this story, and if I do so, then it could be at risk at causing some ill feelings. As my guest, he certainly didn't want to do that. No one would want to do that, and so he checked in with me first. I was very amazed, and that was very much the fulfill a story exactly like the one I told you, and exactly like one of the lessons of this year's campaign. Although speaking the truth is extremely important. But there are times and terms by which that is qualified, and by which we have to know what is being asked for here, and what is the right thing to say here. Sometimes it's just blurt out the truth, but frequently, and we have to be aware of when that's not the case. Frequently, it is not the case, and there's a much more thoughtful response which is being asked of us.
That's an incredible story because it shows so much insight on the part of your guest to say which answer, right? What is it you're asking for? I know that I will ask people about the radio show, and what I'm saying is, how do I improve? But I make sure that I let them know. Don't just tell me you enjoyed it. How can I improve? How can I improve the show, or what are the guests you'd like, or how do I improve as a conversationalist? So sometimes I think we can set people up for the answer, right? But I just want to dive a little bit deeper in there, because early on you said, and you can tell I'm taking notes while you're talking, about, again, the sort of mindfulness and connection, but also about sometimes, and we just talked about it again, choosing peace over choosing my standing up ardently, you didn't say it that way, but for my values. And so that's a difficult mixture sometimes, right, in today's world, that here's my value, and I'd like to get it across, but I believe in keeping peace between us. How do I have a bridge across those two sides of this river, right? Do you have suggestions on that? Is that part of the clean speech process?
It's very much a focus of our efforts. We have a rich Jewish tradition for debate. In fact, we have someone said in jest, 2 Jews, 3 opinions.
Absolutely.
We have lots. We're positively opinionated people. In fact, one of my colleagues, another rabbi, he said that in a class, and somebody held up their hand and said, "Rabbi, I thought it was 3 Jews, 4 opinions." And just we embrace discussion, analysis, conversation, debate. We embrace that. It's a part of our thousands of years of history of analysis and discussion and debate. And sometimes, when we're really engaged in that debate, in the Talmud itself, our book of great debates, it is described as war. It's when we're really trying to drill down to understand something ultimately, we need to be even aggressive in analysis, in critical analysis. But, says the Talmud, when we walk out of the room, meaning when the conversation is over, when the debate is over, it's love. It's arm in arm. And those two things have to go together. We have to be able to debate passionately, but to do so in the context of, you and I together are trying to discover and to drill down to the truth, the best, the ultimate. We're jointly in an attempt to discuss and to buy our critical analysis of each other's opinions to come to something that is real and better and meaningful and true. One of my dear friends, Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser, actually has he was telling me about an initiative that he started, and he's always been a very strong proponent for many years of the Clean Speech Colorado effort. He has an effort amongst attorneys general in America called the Ginsburg-Scalia Initiative. So Ruth Ginsburg of blessed memory and Antonin Scalia were sat together for many years on the United States Supreme Court. They held extraordinarily divergent opinions on many issues. You have the great liberal, the great conservative, and they were great friends. And they were both big fans of opera. There's actually a cute opera written about the two of them, and they spent time together, and they were and they had a very great relationship, even though they held widely divergent opinions. They appreciated each other. They appreciated the debate, and it didn't upset or compromise their relationship. So that's our ancient role models are two sages of Jewish history called Hillel and Shammai, and these two names are synonymous with great debate, and yet they had there was no loss of love between them, and they were greatly respectful one of the other. They and both of them are to this very day role models for how to debate meaningful issues meaningfully, powerfully, vehemently, passionately, and yet not to fall into the trap of disrespect or ad hominem attack, or there's nothing about the person. It's all about the issue. This is definitely a skill that we need to work on in our modern world. I mean, it was really, I think, the visceral sense that the great national debates in American society become so bitter that is really what gave rise to the need for Clean Speech Colorado several years ago. That's where the rubber meets the road for many of us. Can we post online without setting off a waterfall of vitriol? Can we debate these things, or just sit at a holiday meal table together, and with people who vote differently than we do, or that feel differently about masks and vaccines and pandemics differently than we do? Can we have a pleasant meal together? And there could be a level of care and concern that we just avoid the topics, and we don't think we can succeed at having a peaceful meal and talk about these things. But even greater than that would be, we could even talk about these topics about which we differ and which we feel strongly, and do it in a respectful way, recognizing that we're not going to throw the pumpkin pie in each other's face before the meal's over. That's part of our goal. It should be all part of our goal, and hopefully the lessons that we've delivered are 30 tools to achieving it. That's been our hope.
It's amazing to me how difficult that has become. And I'm not going to go into specifics, but I do believe in America we would see that. We would see debate in Congress, but then all the kids went to the same school, or people went and had lunch together, or lawyers arguing a case, and they're vehemently on opposite sides, and then afterwards they go out and remind themselves that they're friends. And we seem to have lost so much of that, which is why I'm so glad you're on, and why Clean Speech Colorado, I believe, is universal and timely. So that's not even a deep enough word, but so profoundly timely for what is going on right now. Believe it or not, we've got about 5 minutes left, and so I want to ask you, because we've talked about the power of the work, we've talked about what you're doing. So I want to ask you a question. Is there something you wish I'd asked you? Is there something you still would like to say about yourself or the work you're doing?
I That's a very lovely question. What would I like to be asked? I would always love an opportunity to express my gratitude. So if I've got 2 seconds, I will. I feel very blessed and honored
You've got 3 minutes. So
to be part.
Go slow. 3 minutes. Go for it.
Okay. I again feel very honored and blessed to be able to participate in this effort. I have an amazing group of colleagues that are working on this together. We have an amazing, dedicated group of generous contributors and supporters who have made this possible. Everything is offered for free, so that's only because of a devoted group of financial contributors. And we now are branching out nationally, and I have fantastic colleagues, affiliates in other communities around North America who themselves are grasping onto the Clean Speech effort and bringing the campaign to their communities. And I'm very grateful for those. If there are those who are listening and from around your listenership around the country, around the world even, we are apt and help and willing and interested to help to bring the effort to other communities as well. As opposed to being a more global effort, we believe that there's something very valuable to be a multi-community effort, many communities doing it, because as a community, that's the way that we can really build our community, is by thinking together as a community about the way that we're gonna speak and communicate and dialogue. And so this has been a community effort, and many communities can do likewise, and we're happy to do more about that. And so it's been a great blessing, just for me, and I'm very honored and appreciative, and everyone who deserves a great degree of all of our gratitude. I just want to take the opportunity, since you've given it to me, to express my gratitude.
Is that what keeps you inspired doing this work? Is the community that is built around it?
Selfishly, I would say I have, if I'm as busy as I am with it, I have that much benefit from it, because I can't help but be mindful and aware of the way I speak, since it's what I am passionately promoting all day long. So I have plenty of benefit from it. It also is very inspiring to be able to help others. In the end of the day, what I believe informs the effort here is really our own genuine concern for others. The way that we speak to others, the way that we listen to others, the respectful attitudes that we take. Are we using our power of speech for the benefit of others and not for their detriment? And that's a sensitivity to others. And so anyone who really wants a greater sense of fulfillment and meaning and satisfaction and happiness and joy in their lives, I think would do well to be less concerned about themselves and be more concerned about the impact that they're having on others. The more positively, the more of a contributor that we can be positively in other people's lives, the happier we'll be, the better we'll feel, the more fulfilled, and the more that we'll be contributing to the shalom, just to bring it full circle, to the shalom of the universe, the wholeness, the peacefulness. And thank you, Dr. Elisa, for having me back on your wonderful show.
Thank you for that, and that was like perfect timing, because it gives us like 1 minute to say goodbye. I do love that wrap it back around, and that watching my words, the ones I speak to others and the ones I speak to myself, is a way of bringing tikkun, a way of living my own tikkun in this world, and stop the habit of shattering the world, but bringing my relationships, all of them, my spiritual relationships, my soulful relationships, my relationships with whoever is around me, into wholeness. So thank you, Rabbi, so much for joining me. If you have been listening, I'm sure you've loved this. This is the Dr. Elisa Show on KUHS Denver The Stream. Believe it or not, we're out of time. You'll be able to re-listen to this show on my website, on Facebook, on lots of different places. And please go to Clean Speech Colorado and try one lesson. It'll lead you to the second lesson. I think you might get addicted. And as just a way to say thank you to everybody on the show, I have my message for you, as always, is please, until we talk again in 2 weeks, stay well, stay willing to be open-minded, as the show is hopefully inspiring you to do. Again, if you've left with more questions than answers, we did a great job today. And most importantly, please, stay inspired and stay hopeful. See you later.